with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act. Be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please all stand to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Prupus? Deputy Mayor Thaw-Eglow?
Here.
Mr. Vinayak?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mayor Miggins?
Here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. May I have a motion to approve the September 6, 2022 Township Committee minutes?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We have reports. So let's go right to reports. Mr. Vinayak, do you have any reports for us this evening?
No report, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Eckler.
Yes, if I may, I'd like to take this time to say my goodbyes to the town and the audience.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So I did prepare this. The past 6 years has been an amazing experience. There was the good, the bad, and the terrible. I'm still not a savvy politician. I still do not even think of myself as a politician. I see myself as someone who loves her hometown and wants to do the right thing. I want to thank my husband for his constant and consistent support. Michael came to every meeting for 3 years until COVID shut down, allowing in person. Then he watched our meetings on Zoom. Michael and my family are well-versed in Millburn politics. And thank you to my friends who have listened to me for 6 years, nonstop about everything Millburn. I know it must have been trying. To say I was a bit OCD is putting it mildly. I was obsessed. I am proud of the many things the Township Committee was able to accomplish. I am thrilled to have been mayor and deputy mayor of the town I grew up in and where we raised our family. I've met so many people and had so many experiences I never would have had. I am saddened and embarrassed by the vitriol that we all had to sit through in the public arena. Hostility feeds off hostility. It was uncomfortable for me, and I think for all of us. I recently started learning playing chess. The ability to think multiple steps ahead and to know your opponent's next move is a skill. That being said, there are perhaps some decisions I made that I would change. But then again, perhaps not. Perhaps I should have started chess sooner. The people in my life know I am fiercely independent, strong-minded, and admittedly, while not always a team player, an absolute loyal friend. I'm never afraid to speak my mind. This has been to my advantage and perhaps to my detriment. I think Alex McDonald and Christine Gaddy have seen the many sides of me. I'm thankful to have gotten to know you both. Your help was invaluable in learning the curve of municipal government, as was everyone's in town hall. We have very dedicated people who do so much, who can also be on the receiving end of undeserved hostility and mean. I do hope one day you will all get an upgraded building to work in. You all deserve an upgrade, as do our police and fire stations. Congressman Malinowski and Assemblyman McKean both told me being a local politician is so difficult because you are known and visible in the community. What was truly astonishing are the things said online. Several neighbors walk by me, may not say hello, that on social media feel emboldened to say awful things, as have people who have never met me. I'm told it comes with the job. But the new people I have met have been so nice and supportive and incredibly kind. I'm way ahead in positive over negative. So I'm so thankful for the opportunity to have served our township in this capacity. I will admit, I had no idea what I was signing on for 7 years ago when I was approached to run. I would not change running off the party line this past November. I'm proud and thank Dave Morrow for being my running mate for our hard-fought campaign. Dave stepped up and had so much to offer. And thank you to our dedicated campaign team. Be it small, we worked really hard. I would love to see the day when local government elections are nonpartisan. I still believe if residents did not need the blessing of the Republican or Democratic Party to get the line and the financial backing, there could be a more varied pool of candidates. Candidates who want to put Milburn Township ahead of partisan control and personal agendas. Milburn Township is a wonderful community that will continue to change. I will obviously not have a vote moving forward. I sincerely hope that Sanjeev and Maggie will listen to the community and accept and put forth a modified plan to fair share housing. It is okay to change your mind. To Michael and Annette, again, congratulations. You said during our candidate forums that there are aspects of the settlement that could be looked at and addressed. The non-equitable overlay zones and the 100% affordable 75-unit building on the DPW site can be changed if there's a will from next year's TC. Annette and Michael, I hope you find your own voice. You got elected by less than half the voters, yet you have the tremendous responsibility of the entire community. Lastly, I hope that one day Taylor Park Gateway on Milburn Avenue is addressed and the MKW plans are not for naught. I think that area deserves new planting and benches, safer pathways within the beloved Rose Garden, a new gazebo, and the sidewalk bricks along the avenue will be replaced to be safe and ADA compliant and help preserve the elm tree. And one last thing I have for Alex is a bag of wintergreens, and I speak to you during every meeting. And to Christine, a bag of Starbucks. I don't think I ate this many in 6 years, but I know you need a constant supply. So you two have been wonderful, and thank you, everybody. It's been quite a journey, so thank you.
Mr. Wasserman, do you have anything to report on your committees?
I have one little report.
Okay.
Very happy to announce that all the signage for the parking deck is up. I don't know, Jesse, if you had a chance to show everybody. This is kind of my final little project. But I want to thank Steve and Alex for working hard to get the signage up for the parking deck. This was like the last thing that I really wanted to work on. So as everybody might know, we have 45 public parking spots in the parking deck that's kind of underutilized. So everybody can now know that where to drive to get to the parking deck. Anyway, so that's one thing. And then I also want to say my goodbyes. My 3 years of public service has been the honor of my lifetime, and I really say that sincerely. I work closely with some amazing leaders in our community. I also want to thank Alex, Christine, and Jesse for all of your hard work during my tenure. In 2020, I worked with my close friend, who's I'm lucky is here tonight, Mayor Jackie Lieberberg, and we co-sponsored legislation to start Explore Milburn. In a little over 2 years, Explore has become an economic powerhouse for small businesses and a center for engagement in the township. I also want to thank Steve and Amanda and our volunteer board for all of their tremendous dedication. And I've really grown to love the people we work with, and it's really been an honor for me. I'm also grateful to have taken a leadership role at CETA and the great work that we've done in regard to public art and the Founding Day event. As a result of a strong group of volunteers with CETA, we're able to draw on the expertise of the Art Advisory, Environmental Commission, Friends of the Library, Historic Society, the Paper Mill, the Green Team, as well as Explore Milburn and the town, and it's really made the town more vibrant. And we've really engaged the residents to make Founding Day a huge success. Lastly, I also want to thank my colleague Sanjeev Vinayak and all the volunteers and staff with flood mitigation. I'm so proud of the work that they've done and the commitment they have to our township. They really are making a difference and are really working towards protecting the township in the future. I will continue to make the town the best it can be, and with similar initiatives ahead. Finally, I also want to thank my wife Eve and my kids, Max, Zoe, Seth, and Sophie, for allowing me to take these last 3 years and spend so much time here. And I also want to take a moment to welcome Annette and Michael to the Township Committee. They are amazing, and I know they're going to give it their all. And with that, I just want to thank everybody who comes to these meetings and who cares about the township.
Thank you. I will report this evening on the library. 64 participants in the chess tournament, which I think is amazing because I feel like the library builds a bench. It turns out that our middle school are national champions in chess this week. It was announced, so I think that was fabulous. There still are chess classes taking place at the library. January 1st, they'll start their winter reading challenge, and there are prizes. You can register online on the library webpage at Beanstack. And in Sunday, January 8th, there will be at the library Odarka Stockard, who will be playing the Celtic harp, that's kind of nice. So that's featured from the Friends. And that's all for my reports. Mr. McDonald, I know we have online Mr. Cantor. Now, Mr. Cantor is the new attorney for our Fair Share Housing, and he unfortunately is home with the flu. But he did offer to come online just to be able to introduce himself because he was not allowed to make he couldn't make the last 2 meetings. So he just wanted to come on and introduce himself. And there you go. Maybe just give us a little bit of an update.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Cantor. I hope you're feeling better.
Thank you, Mayor. I do apologize. I had the flu and a fever yesterday. I just didn't want to expose everybody, but I
Thank
appreciate
you.
So for the record, Jared Cantor, Antonelli Cantor Rivera. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Township Committee. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Again, I apologize. I couldn't be there in person, but I do appreciate you allowing me to appear virtually.
Thank you.
I guess, you know, I was appointed your Fair Share Housing attorney in November. Since then, and I know it was made public, I got an adjournment of our compliance hearing, which is now scheduled for January 13th. The position of the firm is obviously to achieve the township's goals in the Fair Share Housing, which is to achieve compliance, maintain immunity, to stop any builders remedies lawsuits, to control its own destiny when it comes to development through that immunity to builders remedies lawsuits. I have reviewed the settlement agreement, and I look forward to working with the governing body on achieving compliance for the township.
Awesome. That's terrific. And we look forward to that as well. So you will be back in touch with us then before, I assume, January 13th, before the compliance hearing, we'll have some type of a meeting.
Yes, Mayor, certainly at your convenience and at the Township Committee's convenience, I'll make myself available.
Perfect. And I know you've been working with the subcommittee. Ms. Prupis is not well this evening, so she is not here. So I know you've been working with she and Diane. And so hopefully we have some sense of something, I guess I should say.
Yeah, yes, Mayor, I've gotten some direction, and I'm looking forward to obviously working with this governing body and the new governing body, and understanding, you know, what those objectives are. But I understand the clear-cut objective is obviously to achieve that compliance, to maintain immunity, and fulfill the township's obligations when it comes to fair share housing, either through the settlement agreement and the obligations therein and the terms, within that settlement agreement that may allow the township to review some of those terms potentially.
Terrific. Well, Mr. Cantor, thank you so much for coming out of your sickbed to join us this evening, and we look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I apologize for.
No apologies. None of us want to get sick.
I know.
Christmas is 5 days a week.
All right, happy holidays. New
Thank
Year.
you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Awesome. Okay. Public comment. When invited, what?
Can I just,
Mr. McDonald, I bet you have a report I didn't get to do.
yeah, I just
I
have,
apologize.
thank you, Mayor. Just three brief reports. One is a reminder to our residents that live in Zone 6. We have done a lot of communication. We've done a direct mailer that recycling that normally takes place on Saturdays for Zone 6 will be moved to Fridays. And just so that everybody's aware, we do understand that this is a bit of an inconvenience because that requires cans to be put to the curb 3 times a week. But we are working with the contractor for 2024 to make sure that scheduling can line up that perhaps that recycling day is moved to Wednesday, which is the first collection day for Zone 6 for trash. So just some patience with that and understanding that we are working toward that. But for 2023, it will be on Friday. Okay.
That's in the Deerfield section. Zone
That is
6.
correct. Yes. Just an announcement, because Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve fall on a Saturday this year. It is not a general work day for the Department of Public Works. The yard will be closed. So there will be no drop off at the yard on this Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. We will announce that on our channels, but just wanted to make that announcement here tonight as well. The last announcement I have is that and this is just an update. We had communicated that commercial trash pickup would cease at the end of January. We are continuing to evaluate that, and I just want to make that announcement tonight that this will be a little bit of a slower process. It's still an important process, and I'm still committed to making sure that commercial pickups are done by privately contracted for businesses, because again, 86% of our businesses currently have their trash picked up privately and pay for their trash outside of the township. But we are going to slow down a little bit just to make sure that we know all of the businesses, because this can get confused over the years where people put things out and our private contractor may be picking them up inadvertently. So I just wanted to let everybody know, we will be communicating to those businesses that we've already communicated to, letting them know that we're just going to slow down the process a little bit, make sure we get it 100% right. But it is an important process.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
you're welcome.
Mr. Marizzi, okay, thank you so much. Okay. Public comment. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern and clearly state your name and address and speak loudly so that your comments may be understood by all and properly recorded. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option available. If you call in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you're attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. Whenever an audience or committee member reads verbatim from a prepared statement, please email a copy to the Township Clerk's office at townclerk@milburntwp.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there are 30 seconds remaining. Each individual will be given 1 opportunity to make their public comment. Please be patient, and we will address each member of the public that wishes to speak. This is a business meeting, and please do not address professionals or staff directly, and please do direct all comments to me. A reminder that we are all neighbors and personal attacks will not be tolerated. I will now open the public comment period.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Feld. I live in Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. First, I want to thank our 2 elected officials, which is their meetings, for all their public service. And second, on behalf of my family, I want to have a shout out for everyone to have a safe and healthy holiday, whether it's Christmas, Kwanzaa, Christmas or Hanukkah. Everyone be safe and healthy going forward. Now we have to turn to business. Citizens' comments. It's very important. It's an additional check and balance against waste, fraud, and abuse of power by residents. And yesterday, our president talked about the complicity of silence, and it's important to listen to your neighbors, what we have. There's still open questions from last meeting, such as The tolling of 2 leases, when the tolling ended, did they pay? Was an option extended without paying the monies that were not paid during the tolling period? There's question, I'm glad we're hearing that there's gonna be a slowdown on the commercial. When I look at the administrative code, I don't believe the administrative code has been amended to carve out, so every business that comes in, they know what the regulations are, because I think that needs to be done. Talk about that. On Friday, December 9th, my wife and I were driving a guest speaker back to the Hilton, and we noticed 2 major dumpsters going into the DPW site on JFK at 9:30 at night, and they weren't Wilbur trucks. They were like the big trucks that do the plowing. I don't know why they were going there in the middle of the night. That's something I've been asking. Also, I think I asked this body or future body, investigate Oprah compliance. That a lot of things are delayed being produced. Also, there should be an answer why the planning board minutes going back to the amended master plan fair share, which were approved in November 2nd, were only posted last week. They go very important because it ties into what the community is looking at, and that we'd like to know the delay. As of tonight's bill list, there's some comments I like. I'm glad that there's an expenditure for orientation by our 2 new upcoming people. Also, I think we need to know what has been our post-August 1st, 2021 cost of implementation of the fair share housing plan. I think we should know what we've been spending. Also, on the first page of the bill list, it shows that monies are coming out of the general revenues again to the food pantry. Not from trust accounts, it says general revenues. And this has been an issue that's been going on and I've been raising for months and months and months. Also, as to other resolutions, about the interlocal health services agreement. It's for 7 years. I wish a copy was attached to resolution so the public could have an answer to comment, because this contract will bind this municipality for 7 years. Because that's what it has. Also, I know I am in favor of creating the Fair Share Housing Committee. The question I have is, does that need to be done by ordinance versus resolution? Because later in the evening, you are amending, you're creating another committee, but that's going to tie to zoning, and yet you're doing by zoning. I don't know why one is done by zoning or resolution. I'm just saying, as housekeeping, it might be proper that if we're going to create this committee, it's going to last more than 1 year, that we do it by ordinance and it's in our administrative code. That's really all my comments as to the agenda. I will speak later as to the SID and some of the other. Again, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Feld.
Thank you for your service.
Hi, Jay Morielli, 1 Claremont Drive. I'd like to start by thanking the committee members for their service to our community this year. And while I'm sure it's not always a fun job, it's extremely important, and I appreciate your work. To Committeewoman Eglo, I'd like to thank you for your support on gun safety initiatives. You've been a champion for your 6 years here in office, and I appreciate it. Committeeman Wasserman, thank you for your efforts in several areas, but especially for your efforts to modernize our noise ordinance. This Thursday, Governor Murphy is going to sign into law a new firearm concealed carry law for the state of New Jersey. This was necessitated after the Supreme Court Bruin decision invalidated the laws in several states regarding concealed carry, including New Jersey. In New Jersey, right now, there are over 300 applications for concealed carry permits pending. And if our town of 20,000 people is representative, it means that approximately 600 residents will be armed in public locations once this new law goes into effect and once the permits are issued. I encourage the Township Committee to meet with Chief Gilfetter to understand the impact of the new law and to organize a session for residents so that they too can understand what this is going to mean to residents of our town and residents in the state of New Jersey. Finally, I'd like to wish everyone a very happy and safe holiday season and a joyous 2023. Thank you.
Mr. Morreale, I just want to ask you one question. You said that there were 300 new permits,
300,000 applications.
300,000
concealed
applications.
Carry permits that are pending now in the state of New Jersey. Previously, New Jersey was a state that required anyone applying for a permit to demonstrate a need to carry a gun. So, for example, a retired police officer, a judge. Supreme Court struck down those laws in June in the Bruin decision. And it basically means anybody can apply, and unless you've got a criminal conviction or some other circumstance, you'll be issued a concealed carry permit, and you will be allowed to carry guns concealed on your premise in public across the state of New Jersey. The new law designates areas where that will not be permitted. Schools, for example, you will not be able to carry a gun in. Other types of areas like stadiums, but it'll be a big change for New Jersey
And you said 600 in our town.
if it's representative.
If it's
So there's 9.2 million
Sure.
people in New Jersey, 300,000. You can do the math.
Mr.
Thank you.
Morale, I'm sorry, I assume that includes governmental buildings. Government buildings would not be allowed to have concealed carry, do you know?
I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that government buildings are included in the list of prohibited places. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Thank you, Mr. Morreale. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Hello, Leah Cruz, 39 Whitney Road. I'm not going to talk about graffiti tonight because the only graffiti I've seen recently is in South Mountain, the reservation, and I assume the Township Committee doesn't have authority to remove that graffiti, but maybe I'll take it up with the county. But just two quick things. A couple of meetings ago, I had asked about getting one of those speed signs where it tells you your speed if you're going over the speed limit. And then I think it was last meeting, Ben Stoller had also brought up a lot of people speeding down Glen Avenue or near his home. And I just wondered if there was any consideration to getting one of those signs and it can be moved. So that was my first question or comment. And just one other thing, I've been in town a couple of times over the past few months, and I was trying to park in lot 1. And I noticed that there's now a jitney or some kind of service to the paper mill. I noticed this at daytime shows, at least. There were people parking there and then they were being picked up and taken to the paper mill. And I know the town owns it and I love the paper mill. I go there all the time, but it just seems impractical. And some of the business owners, when I would go in, were complaining that the parking was being taken away. So I'm just wondering if there's another way to accomplish parking for the paper mill without taking parking away from the downtown businesses. I was thinking maybe Annie Says, I know that's eventually going to be developed, but that would be a good site to park cars if they're going to use a jitney anyway. So that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz.
Good evening, Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. Happy holidays to everybody, and thank you, Richard and Diane, for your service. On December 7th, I emailed an OPA request asking for evidence or written evidence on when the resumption of lease payments occurred that were told in April 2021 from Boxcar and Paper Mill. I requested any written communications and evidence that these payments were resumed. By December 19th, I got a reply finally asking what I meant by told. This is the language that's actually in the lease and in the resolution. So I'm not sure why I was asked that question. In any case, I got no records and I was asked to clarify. Alex, I think you said you'd report back on this at the last meeting, so perhaps you can answer tonight. When did the lease payments for Boxcar and Paper Mill toll? When did they begin paying rent again? I believe someone noted that Boxcar received COVID PPP money. I thought it was ostensibly used federal funds to pay payroll and rent, other expenses. So I just wondered, are they receiving both federal funds as well as a break from the township? And also the force majeure clause, which is not being honored in the courts apparently, in terms of business interruption insurance. What was the township's rationale for providing that? Second question I have is, could one of you clarify the township's policy regarding towing of residents' vehicles? Is our policy in Millburn to tow to the local pounds or to residents' homes when it is a resident who's violating rules that would require their car to be impounded? The other observation I have is the election rules I am actually concerned about, because we have exactly something like 17,500 registered voters out of a population of 20,000 residents. Seems extraordinary. You may have seen that there was a lawsuit now initiated by Morris County regarding people who vote in a municipality but who do not reside there. So I've had that same observation for the past 3 years, having looked at Millburn's VBM voter rolls. For example, Ms. Miggins, you had 5 people vote by mail from your home address. It's public information. And I just happen to know, something about your daughter since she attended school with my daughter in high school. I don't believe she lives here, but yet she cast a vote by mail ballot in the past several elections. So I just wonder what our township feels about this. I think it's wrong. I think people are taking it to the courts because it seems absolutely ridiculous that people who don't live here have a say in our local municipality. On the subject of crime and stolen vehicles, Holmdel introduced an ordinance and passed it. It now makes it illegal in Holmdel to enter or remain on any driveway, paved surface, or location within 20 feet of a stationary motor vehicle, knowing that he or she is not licensed or privileged to enter or remain in the said location. I provided that article by email and I just handed it to you. And I'm actually asking whether Millburn would be willing to consider doing a similar ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pastor.
Hi, I'm Frank Sacamandi. I live on Lee Terrace. So I watched the recording of the last TC meeting, and I think you all need a reminder that you are adults. And so it should go without saying that you need to behave like adults. But unfortunately, it seems like you need a reminder. The 4 of you that were on the dais last meeting behaved like petulant children. You interrupted one another. You told each other to shut up, and you insulted one another. It was pathetic, and that's putting it lightly. As elected representatives of this town, you need to do better. You need to treat one another better, and you need to treat our residents better. So for those of you that are going to be on the dais next year, I truly hope you try harder and do a better job of being civil to one another and to fellow residents. Now, I want to take a moment to thank Diane for her 6 years of service to this town. While Diane and I were recently political opponents and certainly don't see eye to eye on a number of issues, I think we can both agree that Diane tried her best and fought to do what she thought was best for the town. I hope that as a private citizen, Diane will find time to continue to stay involved in local politics and continue to speak truth to power and challenge elected officials when they are acting against the best interests of residents. Now, with that out of the way, there are a few issues I want to highlight. First, the proposed Taylor Park entryway project that we've heard about for the last few meetings seems like a tremendous waste of taxpayer resources. We were originally considering, I don't know, it was about $1.6 or $1.8 million project to change some landscaping, benches, and pavers. There's no world in which the proposed project should cost anywhere near as much as what you were quoting. I suggest that you put together a revised RFP and put it out to bid to a wide audience so that you can get competitive numbers. I also think that if you're considering spending a large amount of taxpayer dollars on a project like this, it's not strictly necessary that you consider putting it out to a referendum. Now on to fair share housing. At the last meeting, we saw Maggie make it clear that she wants no part in dealing with anything related to fair share housing. She seems to stand by the agreement she negotiated and doesn't want to go through that process again. I can understand that, but we can't expect Tara, Alex, and our town's new attorney to handle this themselves. I suggest you create a citizen fair share housing advisory committee and allow them to be directly involved in the meetings with the town's new attorney and be involved in any current and future negotiations with fair share housing. It should go without saying that this should be a bipartisan group of qualified individuals. But I'm going to say it anyway, as we don't want to see this committee stuffed with machine-appointed puppets. Next, you guys finally listened to reason and got rid of Buzak. You should get rid of Beth McManus as well. She has served as special master for other towns and knows the rules regarding what is and what is not confidential. She should have stepped up and pointed out that Buzak misled the TC when he said that the agreement couldn't be shared with the public before it being voted on. She has blood on her hands as well, and in the interest of starting fresh, she should be removed from the process. Now, it's my understanding there are a number of prerequisites for the final compliance hearing that have not been met. We have been talking about fair share for months and months. Why have you TC members not made any attempt to address the outstanding issues? Where is the developers agreement? What are the cost projections for the project? How is the project going to be funded? Based on the letter RPM filed, it looks like they are expecting to get up to 8 million in public funding. Where will the remaining funds come from? Separately, has the township figured out a site to relocate the DPW to? Have they come up with a cost estimate for moving the site? If not, when should the public expect to get information? Thank you, and I wish you all a happy and healthy holiday season.
Thank you, Mr. Sacramento.
Good evening, everyone. Jerry Kung, 17 Lee Terrace. I'd like to start by wishing everyone a happy and healthy holiday season. At the last meeting, Mayor Miggins stated that she now wants full transparency as it relates to the affordable housing agreement. I hope that these words are backed up by her actions going forward. At the meeting on October 18th, when Governor Cody was surprised to hear that there is such a thing as a 100% affordable housing project, and that one such project is coming to the DPW site, Ms. Miggins quickly offered up that 59 other towns in New Jersey have such projects. So in the interest of transparency, could you please have our professionals share with the public as to how many of those towns are utilizing the projects to satisfy the unmet need portion of their affordable housing obligation? Because I haven't found any such towns, but I did notice that several nearby towns have used 100% affordable projects to satisfy their RDP obligations, which, unlike the unmet need, has to affirmatively be satisfied. So for instance, Madison satisfied 40 units of RDP via several 3-story apartment buildings. Chatham satisfied 74 units of RDP via a 24-unit project and 3 to 4 group homes of up to 15 units. North Caldwell, where our judge is from, satisfied 50 units of RDP via townhomes. Why is Milburn using such a project to satisfy its unmet need? Beth McManus stated on August 17th, 2021, that the DPW project's direct and guaranteed production of affordable housing units allowed us to reduce the density throughout the overlay zone. Yet somehow, we still ended up satisfying 73% of our unmet need through 2 projects, the DPW project and the Woodbine project, and 6 overlay zones of up to 40 units per acre. So for reference, let's just step back a second. North Caldwell, again, where our judge is from, they satisfied 19% of their unmet need. They did not have a 100% affordable housing project going towards the unmet need. In fact, they satisfied their unmet need entirely through zoning of less than 10 units per acre. And crucially, North Caldwell did not build any affordable housing prior to 2015. So this narrative that we were being punished for kicking the can down the road doesn't add up. And in the interest of transparency, could you please have our professionals, maybe Ms. McManus, share with the public why there is such a disparate treatment between similar towns? Also on October 18th, Mayor Miggins stated in an attempt to keep Mr. Buzak that, quote, "If they work for us, we direct them, we pay their salaries. He works for us and it is our job to tell him what he needs to do." In the interest of transparency, can you please explain why in June of 2021, you needed to hire Ms. McManus as our affordable housing planner when you could have simply directed Paul Phillips as to what he needed to do? Was there something that Mr. Phillips was unwilling or unable to do to your satisfaction? As for the DPW project, have you received an explanation from the LSRP regarding the toxicity testing for soil borings 21 and 23 at the relevant depths for the area of known historical contamination? When do you expect to have the developers agreement ready? And in the interest of transparency, will you share the agreement with the public prior to voting on it? So that ends the substantive portion of my public comment. I'd like to end by thanking all of the committee members for their service this year. In particular, I'd like to thank Diane Eglow for everything that she's done for our town. I just want to state that Diane made herself very accessible when I first had many questions about what was going on in the Township Committee. And she got me up to speed very quickly. And so thank you for all of that. And thank you for continuing to fight on behalf of the town. I believe it first caught my attention because there was some discussion over having a second round of public comment, which I personally believe is necessary in order to maintain civility in these proceedings. And Diane, along with Tara, was one of the 2 votes that was in favor of keeping the second round of public comment. So thank you again for that, and thank you for sticking up on behalf of all the residents. And I hope everyone has a happy new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Hi, my name is David Sotnick. I've been a resident for over 25 years and I live at 93 Linden. I wish you all a happy and healthy holiday. The issue, obviously, of the affordable housing settlement has been very contentious in the community and with frequent infighting among this committee. Some of the contentious issues expressed by residents are that they don't want the town to grow. Some are worried about traffic with many new developments. Others concerned about the impact on the schools, and some communicate that the 100% affordable housing residence is being built on a potentially environmentally exposed piece of land. I've not heard that there's concrete evidence of that yet. And then on the other side, we all know that many feel there are unsaid arguments, much of which surround further diversifying our community by income, ethnicity, and behavior. It is these less out in the open arguments, often implied but not said, that are quite apparent and have to many given our town a bad look in the press and elsewhere, especially as the fair share housing settlement got closer and closer and the agreement was finally reached. Considering that these views are neither widespread nor narrowly held, we must move beyond ambivalence and make great efforts in support of Millburn being an open, inclusive, and accepting community. It is therefore the goal of myself and some others that will speak tonight via Zoom to bring attention to New Jersey State Bill 8938 S386, setting up a New Jersey Reparations Task Force tasked with studying the topic of recent and historical systemic racism in New Jersey and potential remedies on the road to greater equality and fairness. The ask for Millburn is not great. All it is being asked is to pass a resolution in support of the New Jersey Reparations Task Force, whose goal will be discussed by others in the coming minutes. Signing this resolution is what so many of our neighboring communities have already done.
Thank you, sir. Jesse, do you want to go to the people on the Zoom call? Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Lori Schuldiner Shore. I live at 76 Undercliff Road in Millburn, along with my husband, Dr. Joshua Shore. Josh and I have been here for over 30 years. We've raised our 3 children here. I am working with David and others who will be speaking later, other township residents, to present a draft resolution for consideration to this committee. The resolution, as David said, would state that Millburn supports the New Jersey Reparations Task Force bill. The bill, if voted into law, will establish a reparations task force in New Jersey. The task force will study the history of enslavement and its aftermath of structural racism. The task force will hold public meetings around the state. The task force will make policy recommendations to the legislature. You may be wondering, why does New Jersey need a reparations task force? There are a few reasons. New Jersey has one of the worst racial disparities in the country, including a $300,000 wealth gap. New Jersey has some of the most segregated schools in the country. New Jersey has the highest Black to white incarceration gap in the country. These are not new circumstances. New Jersey has a deep history of slavery, followed by generations of structural racism, leading to the racial disparities that we see today. Historically, New Jersey was called the slave state of the North. By 1830, more than 2/3 of all enslaved Black people held captive in the North were in New Jersey. New Jersey initially rejected the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. If any of these facts are surprising to you, then in essence, you appreciate what a task force would do. To recap, the task force will study the history of enslavement in New Jersey. It will share those facts with the public, including in public hearings around the state. It will make policy recommendations. The recommendations will be reviewed by state legislators for further follow-up action. So if you would like to learn more about New Jersey's history, it stands to reason that you would support a resolution encouraging the state legislators to pass the bill creating a New Jersey Reparations Task Force. We have the opportunity now to have this conversation and to be honest with ourselves so that we can develop remedies. To learn more, feel free to check out the Say the Word Reparations campaign initiated by the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. And to learn even more, make sure to seize the opportunity to pass a resolution in Milburn that would support the New Jersey legislature's consideration of the New Jersey Reparations Task Force. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shore.
Good evening, Perry Urso, 514 Milburn Avenue in Short Hills. So questions have been asked by way of Oprah. However, they've been answered that request required additional time. Therefore, I ask you tonight, when was the administrative code amended for the 60-day notice garbage pickup to commercial property owners? Did the TC adopt an ordinance amending the code? Additionally, we were told that the cable franchise extension agreement would be on tonight's agenda. And what happened? I would state that I do support stakeholders' additional opportunity to speak in response to comments made during the meeting by public officials. Lastly, I emailed the entire TC, the attorney, and the administrator on Thursday, December 15th, 2020. And tonight's approved agenda was posted on Friday, December 16th, 2020. I had requested that the mayor afford me additional time to counter budget with my presentation. I was hopeful that I would be granted the same courtesy as the executive director. I'd like to thank Ms. Prupis for her willingness to hear what I had to say. However, because my email request was not addressed by the mayor, it is now on the record that my request has been denied for the opportunity to address this body with a presentation regarding resolution 22-257 and 22-258. I'm assuming that I will have opportunity later just to talk on the SID budget, so I will call in then. And finally, I would like to just thank all of you for your service, especially Deputy Mayor Eglo and Committeeman Wasserman. Happy Hanukkah, everyone. Merry Christmas and a very happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Urso.
Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Christine Best. Can you guys all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I live at 15 Fairfield Terrace, and the first thing I would like to say is I do really want to thank everyone on the committee and that serves the township for everything that you do. I'm very appreciative, and if I don't seem that way because I call and complain every week, I just want you to know I hope you all have a happy holiday and a great new year, and that your family and yourselves are all healthy. So thank you for all of your service. I really appreciate it. I'm just calling in about a couple of issues today. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was Tara had followed up with me and saw that Mr. McDonald had, also followed up with me in regards to the generator issue, which is my own personal issue. I just wanted to respond, Alex, because I didn't have a chance to get back to an email. You had told me that there was an exception granted on an emergency basis, and the clause that you quoted was in point 3 that talked about an emergency energy release device. And that clause has nothing to do with what I was talking about. So that has nothing, it doesn't refer to that. And I think that you should have the township attorney review that. Maybe you could tell me later if the township attorney has reviewed the statutes that I presented in the earlier email to the Township Committee. In particular, Title 52, Section 5227D-131 regarding construction permits, and the enforceability under that, as well as the New Jersey Noise Control Act, because from what I can see, there is no law that exempts residential generators, and perhaps no one ever thought about it. But I'm advising to you that I can't find that, and I would really appreciate it. There could be a little bit more of a sense of urgency. This has been going on for me since October 17th. So anything you can do that could help on that, I'd really appreciate it. The next thing I wanted to talk about is obviously 5G, which is my focus. I was on the Environmental Township Commission meeting and listened in and gave some public comment. I have been able to listen to 2 of them. And I do want to bring up something that I think is really important. Well, I think it's very noble, all the people that work on this commission, they seem very passionate and amazing people. The focus, number one, I haven't seen anything to do with 5G on this task force, agenda ever. And so I'm concerned about that. The focus that they tend to talk about, and particularly in last week's meeting, was bottle cap recycling sort of agendas within the high school. There's a high school representative on the committee, Riverwalk cleanup, plant plugs, native plantings, tree inventory. And I do want to comment that there's been a lot of trees we've lost a lot of tree coverage in the township, and there's no inventory for that at all. But they focus primarily on smaller issues that to me are not big wins, which is what I've talked about before. I think the most important environmental issue is about safety. So I would say river flooding and 5G is probably the most critical environmental issues. And to not see that even put on an agenda as an opening point, especially after I've made comments about it, is extremely concerning. And it makes me kind of not really take our environmental commission seriously. It kind of feels like hey, let's do some recycling programs and get some, funding for that. And I do think that committee is grossly underfunded. And I would recommend taking $1 million and giving it to them, quite frankly, because they have no money. They were talking about how are we going to spend the last $1,000? So I think people should take that committee seriously. And as I've offered before, I'd be happy to be part of that task force, or I'd really love to start a citizens task force in regards to 5G. And I also want to point out, if somebody can answer this question, I noticed there's a 5G install on the East Orange Water Company's building that's, I believe, on Parsonage and JFK Parkway, very close to our site where we house sort of the mulch and a lot of the DEP stuff. So I don't know why we'd be putting up another 5G tower in that vicinity, because I know there's been talk about that in this site that houses all the mulch and sort of the planting debris, et cetera. So I'd like to see that.
There's a few other people.
No problem.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maggie. Happy holidays. Okay.
You as well.
Hi, I'm Katya Segre Cohen, and I live at 17 Rahway Road. I am actually a continuation of David and then Lori, and there's actually a third speaker in our group, Andrea, who you guys unfortunately are going to hear us slightly out of sync. But what we are asking for is that we would like the Milburn Township to sign a resolution that they support establishing a reparations task force. The state bill requires nothing of Milburn at this time. It just shows that we as a community support a diverse committee of New Jersey politicians, religious leaders, and citizens to study the history of slavery and its aftermath in our state. After a few years of very contentious issues on this committee, highlighted by the affordable housing settlement and the implied racist comments that have been delivered by many in this town, can we at least acknowledge the long and recent history of the state's systemic racism and make some attempt to right its wrongs? We can have very simple resolution. It can be similar to one of the ones prepared and passed by one of the other towns that Andrea will mention. We could have it prepared and ready to be voted on at the next Township Committee meeting. We just hope that this issue is not set aside and ignored, because that would be a missed opportunity for us to lead, and it would validate concerns about Milburn's unwillingness to address racial inequality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cohen.
Hi,
Good evening.
good evening. My name's Andrea Savage Abramovitz. I live at 24 Undercliff Road in Milburn, and my associates have already spoken, David, Lori, and Katja. I'm here because I want this evening to urge the Township Committee to endorse the New Jersey Reparations Task Force bill. The history of slavery in New Jersey that Ms. Shore discussed was a surprise to me. My adult children, both educated here in Milburn, did not learn this history in school either. We all should have learned it, however. In recent years, a growing body of scholarship on slavery and accounts of the lived experience of Black people have been much more visible and available. These can provide a beginning understanding of enslavement, its ongoing effects, and its legacy of systemic racism. As Ms. Shore detailed, Black people in New Jersey confront some of the worst racial disparities in America, particularly when it comes to wealth gap, health, infant mortality, school segregation, criminal justice, and housing. The Reparation Task Force is charged, and I'll quote from the legislation, to conduct research and develop reparatory proposals and recommendations to address the generational harms caused by New Jersey's role in America's institution of slavery and its legacy of systemic racial discrimination. In my view, the task force offers the opportunity to learn more, deepen and disseminate understanding, and provide suggestions for change. By supporting the creation of the Reparations Task Force, we will be joining communities around the country that are studying slavery and its impacts and exploring action. Here in New Jersey, as of last count, 15 towns and county governing bodies have already passed an endorsing resolution. The towns are Lawrence, West Orange, Highland Park, Jersey City, East Orange, South Orange, Maplewood, Princeton, Plainfield, Montclair, Newark, Trenton, Mercer County, Essex County, and Atlantic City, and more will no doubt follow. If you are thinking that support for the task force rests with only towns with large Black populations, think again. Several of these towns have less than 12% Black citizens. For example, 6% of Princeton's citizens are Black. Milburn should support this resolution because it makes sense to have statewide attention to the history and legacy of slavery and racism. It makes sense for us to have the fullest understanding of the past and the fullest understanding of the problems of the present so that we can find ways to move forward for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Savage.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, good evening, everyone. David Cosgrove, 99 Oakview. I wasn't going to say anything tonight until the last couple speakers made comments, but just, I do want to say thank you to Diane and Richard for your work. In fact, thanks to all of you. To address comments by the last 2 or 3 speakers, trying to equate, or at least it seems they're trying to equate people in towns' opposition to fair share housing and the way it's been done with some type of racial motivation, I think is just completely inappropriate. So that's my comment. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Cosgrove. Is that everybody online? Mr. Carlin, you've been missing in action. Come on up. We missed you. Okay, welcome back. It's nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you folks. I've been a tenant in Milburn for 29 years. I've been landlord, tenant,
Yeah.
Yes, because you know, because you had all this experience. No, you do fabulous work. I came originally because of some violations. I checked again today. There are still about 37 to 39 violations in my apartment house. That's fine. The reason I'm concerned is because of safety factors. And I spoke to a former police chief who also taught boxing here. I forgot his name, but I'm sure that some other people do know him, who lives here. And doors should have locks on them. You know what I'm saying? Because that is an important item. And they don't always have locks. As a matter of fact, they haven't had locks for years. Where someone could come into the basement, stay there and stay, and then do some damage. They could go into a parking lot, say at Trader Joe's, and do a little bit of damage there, or accost someone. Come and guess where they can hide? They can hide in an apartment basement that's unlocked right across. Not that anyone could do that, but believe me, it could happen. And just little things like that. As you know, I'm a safety nut. I'm a nut for the things. I do believe in the safety of individuals, and I always have. You know, anyone who reads the Robert's Rules, you know, at night and all of the regulations in New Jersey is a nut. But I thank you very much for your service, Diane, and everyone. And thank you for coming on board with the last couple of meetings. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Carlin.
Al, you should reconsider my grade. We'll talk later.
Oh,
Thank you.
consummate.
I will now close public comment period. At this time, our professionals and committee members may directly answer any questions made by the public. It's not a time for dialogue or debate, clearly, but if the public has any other questions, you can always contact the Township Committee outside of our business meetings or the Township Business Administrator. Thank you. Mr. McDonald, I'd like to start with you, sir.
I'll just address a couple of the questions that were brought up. One is Mr. Feld had asked about the trucks on JFK.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that site, a part of that site is also owned by New Jersey American Water, so they access their portion of that site from JFK. So those are their trucks. They do store some materials there. And if you've noticed, there's also a building that is the water companies there as well. Ms. Cruz had mentioned the speed sign. We do have a speed trailer in the police department, and so we'll speak to the police department about their deployment of that, possibly on Cypress if there's a concern of speed on Cypress. The signs that you see in front of the high school are not necessarily, they are movable, but it's not as easy as hooking up a trailer and moving that, which we have deployed on several occasions and on various roads. So that is certainly a possibility. Just to comment on lot 1 and the jitney for the paper mill. I don't really see the issue here. The fact is that these individuals are paying to park and they're utilizing restaurants and other businesses in downtown. And so if they're being picked up to go to the show as well, I think as long as they park and they pay for the parking, that's one thing. You know, the paper mill does have limited parking and hopefully, you know, continued efforts to address that on their behalf, as well as, you know, things that are going on with the township to, you know, change the parking deck to have close to 100, just over 100 shopper parking spaces in the parking deck will help with that. I think that Ms. Pasternak, in terms of your question about told and force majeure and things like that, I will ask that the township's attorney take a look at that question, because force majeure was a part of these leases, and it was implemented to allow for an abeyance of rent during COVID, when the service or what was being provided by that particular business, paper mill or the boxcar, was unable to be done because of restrictions that were placed on them as a result of the government. That then was, once those restrictions were fully lifted and they were operate, that's when they began paying rent again, but we can certainly get you the specific dates on that. As terms of residents being towed home, if they don't have registration, I think that is, certainly there are avenues of discretion with police officers, but certainly a question that can be asked of the police department. But I assume that if that does happen, we are certain that those people live in town and that they are being towed to their home. I think that's all I have to comment on at this point, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Vinayak, do you have anything?
There was this one comment that was made, environmental commission. If you're interested in the environmental commission, please fill out the volunteer interest form and will be considered. So it's, when you come in here, you can say you're interested in something, but unless you have filled up the volunteer interest form, we wouldn't have any detail about you to consider you for anything. So I think this comment was made in the last meeting as well, so I'm just trying to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinayak. Ms. Eglaw?
Yes. As far as the paper mill, I just want to say the Sound of Music was really great. I don't know how long the run is, but if you can get tickets, it was fabulous. So as far as the reparations task force, I was notified. Some of these people reached out to me. I personally do not think this is something for the township committee to decide. Maybe this is something that should go to a referendum, because there's unknown monetary and tax ramifications. This is just not as easy as signing on to that, but that would be for next year's township committee. The cell tower, which I still hope one day will be at JFK, is to the benefit of the entire community. There are so many dead spots that our residents suffer from, and I think that is something that we are responsible to give to our township residents, good cell service. Oh, I do hope if there's concealed permits that they're not allowed in public buildings, so we'll have to get metal detectors here and cops, more cops. Anyway. I know, I think one of the biggest hazards in this town is still, I say it every time I'm here, is our residents refusing to stop at stop signs. And I think that that is just a puzzle to me. Stop signs are not suggestions. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Wasserman?
No, I have a couple of small comments. I hope next year's committee gets Gateway accomplished. I know that there's a lot of money issues. Last meeting, I suggested that we just start with a smaller amount of money, about 300,000, just to get started as an incremental start to open up the front of the park. A lot of people see it differently. Let's do it comprehensively. I just think that for next, it'd be great to have the park opened and our gateway opened for next summer, if there was a way to do it, even as a start. So that was one comment. And for Christine Best, who I really appreciate coming to the meetings, she brings up a lot of really great issues. But I think Tara actually said it best at one of the meetings. You have to find your people. I think it's actually the environmental commission. And it takes time. But find your people and bring them to the committee and be heard on it. And I think she brings up a lot of good issues, and township needs policies on 5G, and it does affect us all. And I want to say that I appreciate that my friends the Sotniks are here. And it's great that that people are getting involved, even though we may not all agree on everything, but it's great that you're getting involved, and I want to welcome you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Mr. Marizini?
Just two matters. There was a question that was raised about whether the adoption of the Affordable Housing Committee should be by ordinance or by resolution. What's the difference between the Development Review Committee? I think that was the purpose of the question. That Development Review Committee is part of the land use law and must be done by ordinance. The establishment of the commission, the Citizens Commission, is a different animal and does not require an ordinance. With respect to the generator noise issue, yes, we are at our firm looking into that issue, and we will have a response. I will also look at the language regarding the force majeure provisions, which are not uncommon in documents and are being are given exercise these days because of the pandemic in many of our other clients. And I'll look at that language and respond on that. So,
thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing to Christine, Ms. Best's comments is that the right-of-way permit for Verizon today is not 5G technology, just so that everybody's aware.
Okay.
Can I ask Mr. Marizini a question
Please.
about the Citizens Committee? If that happens tonight, do committees expire? Like what, can you just address, I know that we have new township committee members joining, and I always think the committees maybe end at the end of the year. I mean, can you just?
yeah, it's typical to make appointments at reorganization time of appointments that expire. I think tonight the resolution is to appoint the committee, but to establish the committee, but I didn't think that it was going to actually appoint the members at this point. When the members are appointed, their terms will be established.
Because we haven't even started it, we haven't even started interviewing yet.
There's no volunteer interest for it.
There's no volunteer interest form on it yet.
I mean, yeah, I'm just addressing, I mean, I support it. I mean, even though I'm leaving, I do support it. The question is, is that something that would that enacting that tonight, would it make more sense to bring this up in the next meeting when the new council is here too?
Well, as I said, the resolution that I've read simply establishes that there will be a committee, identifies the number of people on the committee and which areas they represent and so on. There will be another resolution adopted subsequently, if that one's adopted, in order to appoint the people to fill.
So you still need another.
You still need another resolution to appoint the people to fill those capacities.
Does it make more sense to have the new committee go through this? Because we're adopting a resolution that they're going to have to live with, that they've had no input.
As a legal matter, you can do it either way. As a matter of policy, you can choose one way or the other, whichever you prefer.
I would just say, if you want it up and running for next year, we should vote on it tonight, because otherwise you'll get it in February, but that's up to you. I mean, I'm just thinking, right, Joe, they would need to, they want it up and running, you'd want to appoint those people at the reorg.
You can't, because you haven't put out a volunteer
that's
interest
true.
form to have them.
That's
I mean, I'm just thinking that for the membership of the committee.
formation of it.
Yeah, the formation, if Ned and Michael, had.
Why don't we think to
I mean,
put this off
don't-
till the
don't get
first
me wrong,
meeting?
I think we don't, the town should have it, and I think that's.
Of course,
the thing.
we have to.
I just want to make sure that we don't start on the wrong foot on it. Maybe Michael and Ned have feelings over the membership of the committee.
Or how maybe they want more.
Maybe they want more representation. But that's just my thinking.
Let's start with consent agenda resolutions while we ponder that other item. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve resolution 22-250 through resolution 22-255, which are listed on the consent agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Prupus, sorry, Deputy Mayor Phil Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes,
Mayor Miggins.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mayor, could we take a 2-minute break?
We met. We could take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a recommendation that we pull resolution 22-256 till next year and put it in for next year. Okay, this is Tara's thing as well. She's not here. She's sick. So let's pull it and then we'll make it first thing on the agenda in January. Okay,
Second meeting.
second meeting in January. I think that's important that she's here.
We just don't want to, I just don't want to be seen as putting it off to put it off.
No,
It'll
you're
definitely
second
be on
week.
the agenda
Can
for-
you make sure it's on the second week of the agenda, at the
Yep.
second agenda? First one is reorg, but absolutely, because then she'll be here, the new members will be here, and I don't feel like we're doing the right thing. So it's going to be on the second meeting in January. Everybody, do we?
You have to,
roll
you have to
call?
vote the table.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Ethel Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, we are going to hear 22-257, the public hearing of the budget for the Milburn Short Hills Business Organization. The 2023 Milburn Short Hills Business Organization budget was introduced by the Township Committee at our November 14th, 2022 meeting. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 22-257, which authorizes the Township to read the 2023 Short Hills Business Organization budget by title?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Deputy Mayor Ethel Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now refer to Steve Grillo, the Executive Director, for any comments on the 2023 Milburn Short Hills Business Organization budget.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the committee. I don't have any comments at this time. I did make a full presentation at the November meeting. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them now, or certainly after the public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grillo.
How about a compliment, Mr. Grillo? Thank you so much for everything you do in town. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
I do.
Yes, and thank you all for your ongoing support.
Yes.
Our
Thank you, Steve.
I hereby open the public hearing for any comments on the 2023 Milburn Short Hills Business Organization budget.
Good evening, Jeffrey Feld, 11 Alexander Lane. What I'm going to say should not be taken. You have to be very careful here. This is the third public hearing approving budgets. We did once in 2021, 2022, and now we're doing for 2023. And it's a question tonight. We're going to be looking at the rule of law versus everyone's going to be saying about, how great s'mores are and things like that. But we have to look at the law. There's a pending lawsuit. We have to go back to August 2020 during COVID. Some of the members here were not members. There's questions of what happened here. We have an entity that's subject to lawsuits. There's certain questions that has never been answered. Whether Tara had a disqualifying conflict of interest. That disqualifying conflict of interest is broader now because we have a mayor who's located in there. So we have two people. The opinion has never been updated. There's litigation. We're all waiting for the judge to schedule a hearing. I don't know when that's going to happen. This is a statutory interpretation case about buy-in, whether you can have a SID whose members are appointed and never can be voted out by the people that have to pay. We have to look at this, the history of this. That in December 2018, the original SID that was limited to downtown was dissolved at the demand of the public, of the downtown business owners. 2 years later, it comes back. This is expanded and appointed. In August 2020, when many people were not attending during COVID, the agenda packet was not available until 4 hours prior to the meeting. And during that meeting, you appointed various people and people didn't have input. I urge many of you to go back to read the minutes and watch the video. You have former mayors saying, you're doing it wrong. You don't have the buy-in. You did not go out to the public and get the expanded area to have it. Also, we've learned after you approved it in August, that's when we retain Perkins Eastman. And it comes back to the downtown vision plan. You look at the 2018 master plan, it talked about having a SID. It talks about applying to Main Street, New Jersey. Precondition to be in Main Street, New Jersey is you need a SID. This has all been orchestrated. Until we know their entity is valid, let's look at also the budget. Last time we were supposed to have the comparisons about what happened last year to this year. You didn't get that. You look at what are the costs? Most of the costs are administration. At the last SID meeting, we've heard that there's gonna be grants. That's more revenues that you'll be receiving next year. That's not set forth in this budget. It should be. You know that they're getting grants. They should be in the revenue, should be in there. There's a question of, remember the audits. An audit came in, the auditor, 2021, and told them there was problems, like you retained a professional to do work as your marketing consultant at the time without a contract. You were paying them. Remember, this is an awkward situation, is that this entity is not just paid by a special assessment. It's also monies coming every year from the taxpayers. And there's questions of controls. One of the things is this entity a controlled entity? Because the board is appointed by, approved by this local government body. The people who are paying the assessment have no right to remove them. That's different from most other place SIDs. We're also, remember how this SID started in 2020 when you shut down Main Street. That was before the SID was created. We've been asking for 2 or 3 years for an accounting of how much money you spent to fund the downtown Main Street. We still have not have an answer. You have, at the SID meetings, there was another chart provided of, I'll call intangible soft costs paid by the government, such as the lease that he has. Every time you shut down Main Street for the projects, who bears that cost? The taxpayers. There's also a question about what happened in early December when you shut down Main Street for the winter, whatever that area was for the 2 blocks. Who approved that? Because one thing we did learn this year, that the state told us that when we wanted to shut down Main Street during this last summer, we had to do by ordinance. And we had to do by a limited period of time. I'm not aware of any resolution or any official action that this committee took to authorize the use of Main Street for the beginning of December. Again, the issue about we'd rather litigate and not mediate. We know what the judge said. Now, here's another touchy situation. 2 members were campaigning in 2020 for office. The campaign material said that no taxpayer subsidies would occur to fund this. Well, it has. There's a concept called fraud in the inducement. You told people you do something, you do something else. We had to look at this. This entity, remember, there's no written opinion has ever been delivered by any attorney as to the validity of this expanded appointed SID under state law. We've made requests for whether an opinion came from the municipal attorney. No. We asked for whether opinions came from the new SID attorney. The answer is no. There's also an issue we have to talk about. At the last meeting, we talked about independent contractors being employed by the SID. Has anyone ever did an ABC test to see whether they're employees or independent contractor? Because if Mr. Grillo is an independent contractor, that means he has other clients. Is that true? Do we restrict his hours? And when we talk about the new director of marketing, what came out at the last meeting, she has 2 sources of payments. One comes out of the SID budget. Another part is reimbursed. If you look at the bill list for Black River, that she gets the money, a portion of her pay, it comes from grants that the town received from various community laws. When did this board approve that? Did you approve it through this budget? Or did you take another resolution saying that we authorize the SID to be managing grant monies that came to the township? And this goes back to the rule of law and transparency. I mean, yes, and I've always said to this Mr. Grillo since the first day he arrived in May 2021, goes back to best practices. I think many of the things he's doing is being employed Because we need because best practices requires this town to have like a director of economic planning and development. And that's an in-house employee. And that's what I've been saying for more than 2.5 years, that he belongs within the city's, the township's budget and not as the city.
Thank you, Mr. Felt.
Hi, Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart. I have just a really simple question. I'm looking at the, total expenses. And I remember before this SID was formed that there was a lot of, supposedly, I think, a lot of upset about the DMDA having a disproportionate amount of its budget being spent on staffing. So I'm just curious, it looks like something like 56% of the expenses are going for staffing and only about 25% for programs and services. So my question is, how did that proportion get arrived at and why is it like that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Perry Urso, 514 Milburn Avenue in Short Hills.
Good evening.
I truly must say I echo Mr. Resident Attorney Feld to a lot of his comments tonight regarding the SID. I am disappointed that I wasn't afforded the opportunity to do a presentation tonight. So I have a couple comments. Where's the opinion regarding the expanded 5-district SID? I am still pending a response by this body regarding the disqualifying conflict of interest regarding Committeewoman Prupis and now Mayor Megan's. Where is it written regarding the Wonder Truck boundaries limitation restrictions? I am in receipt of the events held by the SID through November. Based on documents, it is clear that no matter what the event, downtown is favored by nearly 90%. There are properties in question regarding the exemption of the assessment, while others are not. And certain properties have been afforded benefits that are not within the SID assessment. I encourage all TC members to review the August 11th, 2020 meeting minutes, where there were 3 prior sitting mayors stating their opinion and voted no to the SID. One past mayor, now sitting committeewoman, who ran on the dissolution of the DMDA in 2018. Another committeeman and now sitting mayor who also ran that they would not be funding the SID with taxpayers' money. Facts matter. This body approved an exorbitant amount of monies to litigate and not mediate. And last, I'd like to state, do you support taxation without representation? Vote no on a SID budget, and I would request a resolution to rescind 2561-20. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Ms. Urso.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Vicky Powell, 358C Milburn Avenue. My mother's had the store in Milburn for 37 years, and I was involved in the previous SID, and I just want to say that Steve, Amanda, and the board of the Explore Milburn Short Hills is doing a fabulous job on doing events, marketing the town, being a support system to the businesses in town. I can guarantee you, if you visit many, many, many stores in the SID, they will be happy to echo my sentiments. I also want to mention that when we were on the past SID, of course, I think it was Miss Pasternak mentioned about the payments and the salaries. If you look at any town SID, I thoroughly looked at when we were going through our salaries for our employees. A large portion of their budgets is salaries. You look at any SID, Summit, Westfield, Morristown, Cranford. It's the same in every town. This is nothing new here. We need to support this SID. We need to pass this budget because they're doing fabulous for the town. That's it. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a lovely evening. Thank you. I will now close the public hearing. Mr. Grillo, would you like to step up and answer any of those questions that maybe were brought to, and then we can also have Mr. Murray do it, if there's anything you can answer as well. Okay, sir, thank you.
Sure. So I think there was one specific question that Ms. Pasternak asked about the administration, 56% or so.
Yeah.
Ms. Powell's right. That's pretty much standard for a SID, especially a SID of this size. It's important to remember there are 500 businesses in 5 districts of this SID. That is a lot of management that we have to do. We also are responsible for the majority of the streetscaping work and plantings. We hosted, I think the number was 20 plus events, not including the music, which is over 40 events during the year. And so for the 56% of the budget, which I do affirm is industry standard, remember that you get my services full-time as well as Amanda's. She's at 35 hours or so a week. So you are getting essentially 2 full-time staffers. And certainly, as evidenced by our work during the December period, we work more than 40 hours a week quite often. So I think it's, in terms of industry standard and product delivered, I think the salary number is quite in line. Ms. Urso did mention that the SID assessment benefited properties versus unassessed properties. I don't know what specific properties she's mentioning, but certainly if she were to provide that information, I can check it against our master records and determine if the property she thinks is in the SID is actually in the SID or not. So there are obviously boundary lines, but certainly would be happy to answer that if she provided that. The other thing I just want to note in concerning Main Street, New Jersey, that Mr. Feld mentioned, you do not need to be a SID to be enrolled in Main Street, New Jersey. In fact, quite the opposite. Main Street, New Jersey will fund you to do the feasibility study to create a SID. And so there are communities that are Main Street communities that are not SIDs. There are communities that are SIDs that are Main Street, and there are communities that are SIDs that are not Main Street. So I know it's just something that keeps coming up, but unfortunately, Mr. Feld's facts are incorrect. You do not have to be a SID
Mr. Feld?
to be in Main
Mr.
Street,
Feld,
New Jersey.
please, sir.
And
Nope, no, Mr. Feld, please. Thank you.
so Jeff Bueller doesn't run Main Street, New Jersey. He runs the MPP program for the DCA. But nonetheless, hopefully we will be able to apply when that program becomes available, fingers crossed in 2023. And we will have the ability to secure funds, especially for capacity building and other programs. So we were hoping the program be available this year. It was not. And so hopefully 2023, but just wanted to clarify that.
Can I do want to ask you a question. 2 questions. Ms. Urso stated that 90% of the events happen downtown, or the town is favored. Can you speak to that for us, please?
Sure. So the document that she requested a number of months ago is a list of all the activities that have occurred under the event umbrella. Included in that number is the musical performances that occur in the Main Street pedestrian mall.
I see.
So obviously that skews the number. However, we only have one pedestrian mall in one location. And so from a numbers perspective, she's not incorrect. From a context perspective, she is incorrect because we do events throughout the district. But additionally, it's important to remember that events are not all that we do. Ms. Urso, just like any other property owner or business owner, is entitled to attend any of our educational sessions. She's chosen not to. Social media and marketing support, everyone is entitled to that. They've asked us not to tag them or include them in any of their social media. And really anything else that we do, merchant mixers or participating in events that may not be in your district. For instance, at the Short Hill Station Igloo event 2 weeks ago, we had Taste Buddy selling, they're on Upper Milburn, but they were able to come up and sell their wares. So it's not accurate to say that there's no services or events provided to different geographic areas. That just happens to take in context the musical performances in the pedestrian. belt.
I have another question. It seems that most of the vacancies are on Upper Milburn Avenue. Are you doing anything to try and help the merchants up there on Upper Milburn Avenue too? Is there anything you could do to help them with their vacancies?
Sure, so.
Or have you tried?
Yeah, so the data is actually very interesting. The greatest decrease, now let's start from the beginning. When I started here, the commercial vacancy rate was 16%, which is enormously high. It is now down to 5%. 80 new businesses have opened since the SID has been in operation. I think those are great success stories. But then when you break it down further by district, the greatest percentage decrease in vacancies has actually been on Upper Milburn Avenue, primarily because of the Metropolitan. I think a lot of property owners and business owners are recognizing that a new commercial base is going to be moving in the next couple of months. But also, if you look at number of new businesses per district, on Upper Milburn Avenue, 20% of the businesses that are there today have opened since the SID was created. So 1 out of every 5. There is a challenge across the town in that there's only about 10 long-term vacancies, shall we say, properties that have been vacant for longer than a year. For the most part, about 4 different owners own all of them. So it's not as if there are these properties all over the place owned by various people. There are certain owners who have a high number of vacancies, especially on Upper Milburn Avenue.
And have we tried to help them with that?
We have a page on our website that's called Available Properties.
Okay.
And we post to that. And so that gives people an opportunity when they contact me and they say, I'm looking for a space, I direct them there. And the person can either call me or the designated representative.
And are all those properties on our page, on your page?
No, the URSOs did contact me and asked me to take down 3 of their properties and did not want them advertised. That was probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
And that would have been a benefit that they are entitled to.
Okay.
And so they chose not to accept that benefit either.
Okay, that's interesting. Talk to me about the Wonder Trucks really quickly. What happened with the Wonder? I know they're the bane of everybody's existence.
Well, I'm going to do the same thing I did a second ago. I'm going to talk macro and then granular. So in the macro, Wonder has requested to work in this town. Alex and I and a number of other folks have dealt with that, and that they do serve residential neighborhoods. I can't speak to the legal policy because I don't know that well enough, but the agreement is that there are certain designated no service zones.
Okay.
Those are the districts within the bid. So for instance, in downtown, the Wonder Truck app will not work if you try to order. So that's a restricted zone. You can't order because we believe it competes with our restaurants. So I think that was a sensible way to do this. Now, if you live out on a residential street out in Short Hills, you can order it, right? You're not conflicting with a local business. In terms of specifics, and this is something that came up at our November meeting, there was a Wonder Truck that was actually serving behind Ms. Urso's property at Enzo's. And she brought that to our attention. I investigated it. It turns out that it was actually one of their tenants that lives above the restaurant that ordered. So what we found from that actually through our investigation was that there was a glitch in the app. The app doesn't allow you to order if you're on Milburn Avenue, but it did allow you if you were in the parking lot behind the building. And so obviously the app didn't know if you were in the front or the back of the building. So we spoke to Wonder, told them that that is a restricted area as well. And so that has been dealt with. And we talked about this at our November meeting, and I've encouraged anybody that encounters that, any restaurant owner that sees that, to please let us know, because obviously we can only determine if there's a glitch in the technology once it happens.
Okay, thank you very much. That was all very helpful. Thank you. Just Ms. Egler?
So if people live above Enzo's and they want a different type of food, why should they be restricted from ordering from Wonder Truck? Are they only allowed to eat from Enzo's?
Wait a second.
Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me.
That just happens to be the specific example that was brought to our attention.
Okay.
And Ms. Urso was correct in what she said. And I stated that on the record at our November meeting. She was absolutely right that should not have happened. But no, we have decided that if you do live above any type of commercial space within the boundaries of the district, you are blocked from using the Wonder app.
Okay, I don't think that's fair, because I think people actually, it's not the bane. People love the Wonder Truck. I haven't had it yet. My friends have. I haven't used them yet, but I think if you live in an apartment house, you should be able to have Wonder Truck in their parking lot, but I'm not part of that decision process, but I don't think that that makes a lot of sense to me.
Could you also tell us the other zones? So Milburn Avenue, the downtown area. So if people live in apartments above the downtown area, they cannot order Wonder.
That is correct.
And if people live in apartments on Upper Milburn Avenue, they cannot order Wonder.
Correct.
And if somebody wants to do it at the Metropolitan, it doesn't matter to us because that's Springfield.
Correct.
Correct. And is there any, both sides of Milburn Avenue on Upper Milburn Avenue? So if somebody lived on Meadowbrook Road that backs up to the commercial, could they order Wonder?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just the two certain districts, I guess, or five?
Yeah, so our SID does not have any residential properties, a single family home, for more clarity. So there's no one that lives in a single family home that's within the SID. So if you live in a single family home in any of these residential neighborhoods, you're not prohibited. There is, as Deputy Mayor Eglo mentioned, there is this imperfect system where, yes, if you live in an apartment in a commercial district, you are prohibited from using that.
So the apartments on Woodland Road could not, since they're in,
No, they can.
they can? Okay, just curious.
So it gets into the minutia of this.
Yeah.
On Woodland Road, if it's 100% residential, that would not be a property within the district of this, within the boundary of the city.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr.
So
Grillo.
just, wait, I'm sorry. So people moving into the Wells Fargo will not be able to use the Wonder Truck.
Correct.
If there is a commercial use on the first floor,
And there will be.
then that property is going to be within the boundaries of the CID, and therefore they would be prohibited.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I think that should be revisited. That makes no sense to me at all.
Now, does the Wonder Truck also pay towards it?
No.
So, and what, do they add any taxation quantity or money towards township?
So they've actually sponsored the CID. And that was, we received a sponsorship this year for entertainment. So they provided a portion of the funding for the summer entertainment and the pedestrian mall.
Is there a way we can add to the taxes on the Wonder doing business in the township? I'm just asking a simple question. I don't want to get into.
Yeah, I'll give you a simple answer, and it is no. Because part of the issue is that your taxation is of brick and mortar structures. Unfortunately, Wonder, their commissary is in Cranford, and I think they have a research center in Parsippany, and they have a few brick and mortars, and those are the towns that receive taxes from them.
Can we change that policy ourselves here, or is it state policies?
I believe that it is, again, a bunch of towns have looked at this in terms of what they would do, what they want to do with Wonder. And some of it is, we've gone after them for health inspections. That was Westfield's solution. And nobody has looked at taxation of these trucks, because I think that, quite honestly, that's their model. And I don't think they would have done it if they were going to get taxed by 566 municipalities that they're operating in.
I'm sorry to hijack
Yeah.
the conversation from Sid to Wonder.
Yeah.
Mr. Wasserman.
Yeah, Steve, could you, I just want to highlight, and again, I've been involved with the CID. I was a co-sponsor along with my friend Jackie Lieberberg. So people know how I feel about it. But can you speak to some of the added benefits of having CID that's not in your day-to-day duties? Like, parking, like the parking survey we did for the first time. And when Hurricane Ida hit our businesses, can you talk about how the CID addressed the hurricane, what the benefit was to this township?
Sure. Well, I think it starts with having a very receptive administration here. Alex and Jesse are terrific to work with, and they're very interested in what we as a CID can bring in terms of economic development and modernization of policy. And so when we approached the town about creating the IDA fund, they were there to say, yes, we have a mechanism, we can pass a resolution. You're a not-for-profit, you can accept donations, you can also accept the $220,000 that they provided us. So we ended up putting $420,000 out on the street to 75 businesses post-IDA. And I believe the average grant was somewhere about $5,000.
And the CID facilitated all of that money. We watched all of that money, and we guarantee that money went in the right hands.
Correct. So we evaluated all applications. We did deny applications for people that were not eligible. We then managed both the township money and the private donations that went into our bank account. We established a separate bank account as to not commingle funds. And we then had a financial review by our auditor, which we passed. And all of the money was dispersed, minus a de minimis amount that was required actually by the township for that financial review.
So if Hurricane Ida would have hit and we didn't have this SID and we didn't have you in sneakers running around to the merchants supporting our businesses, it may have been a different story.
I want to be humble about it.
I know you're being humble.
I think it made a big difference. I think that, you know, seeing a friendly face and, I mean, even just with Lestrada's fire, you know, just having myself go over there and say, listen, guys, we're here to support you. You know, businesses need to know that the township, whether it's elected officials, administrative, or, you know, third-party entities like Explore are there to support them, because bad stuff happens. And we need to be there to support them, whether it's financially, emotionally. You know, it sounds corny, but it's true.
Well, I saw you in action, and I just think that gets, some of that gets lost. The fact that we have you and Amanda and the SID and our volunteer board, that we're here for good times and bad times. And I just think that sometimes gets lost.
I just want to add that it does make a significant difference, and especially times like Ida where the township focus is elsewhere. At times you're dealing with the residential, you're dealing with the post recovery and the cleanup. And I will say unequivocally that having Steve and the SID helps through those times for sure.
It's crucial.
It is.
Now, I have a technical question.
I like
Maybe
those.
by any three of you, or maybe our attorney. We keep hearing about that we are doing this illegally, that SID is not the right thing, or we voted for it, or this, that. Are we doing anything illegal?
I was going to address that, but it's my turn.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
So if you don't mind, I'll take that question.
Yes, thank you. Because I keep hearing this almost in every budget meeting, in every meeting, that it's illegal, is that. I want to make sure we have professionals on our books here, on our township, and we have retainers with them. If we are doing anything that is not illegal, I assume we will be advised with our own attorney. I'm not going to be sitting down here, hearing from the other side that, hey, you're doing this wrong. Well,
Joe's gonna answer.
Tell us, Mr. Mariziti.
I'll be happy to address the issues. Yes, there is litigation that's been pending for, I think, a couple of years, challenging the validity of the action taken by the municipality. That's a lawsuit. It's not been decided by the court, it's pending. So it is, anybody can sue about anything. It doesn't mean that they will win, right? And the lawsuit is such that it's not one where an injunction has been issued, which would prevent the SID from going forward while the lawsuit's going forward. So the lawsuit is not having any impact on the operation of the SID. But I want to say a couple of more things. I've heard this said often that the township wants to litigate rather than mediate. And the township is litigating because we're defending a lawsuit. We didn't bring the lawsuit. We have no choice but to defend it. What's happening with respect to the question of mediation? Well, the court has provided, I'm not handling the case in our firm, it's my partner, Andrew Brewer, but I am in contact with him because this comes up at these meetings repeatedly. I want to know what's going on myself. So I did attend the case management conference that was held virtually some months ago. And the court has determined that there should be non-binding arbitration. So there will be a non-binding arbitration about this. The question really is a philosophical question. How do you arbitrate a case where one party is saying it's totally illegal and the other party is saying it's legal? That's not the kind of thing that you normally compromise. So it's hard to understand how the non-binding arbitration is going to make a difference here. But when is it going to happen is the next question. And that question is in the hands of the court because there is an issue, there has been an issue about discovery. And that gets back to the conflict question. So let me talk about the conflict question for a minute that we hear a lot about. I'm going to continue. The conflict question is an allegation that Committeewoman Hoopus, who has a business in the area, voted on the creation of the SID, and that therefore there's a conflict of interest. There's a specific provision in the local government ethics law that deals with such kind of a situation, and the analogy is that I think all of you pay either directly or indirectly real estate taxes. Whether you're a tenant or whether you own property, you pay real estate taxes. Does that mean you cannot vote on the budget? No. Why? Because the legislature has said when you have an interest, and you do have an interest in your real estate taxes, that is in common with many other people, that it diffuses the impact of that conflict. And so that's the argument, that is the defense argument that we're making with respect to Committeewoman Lucas. She is one of hundreds of people. It's a big group of people that are involved in the same kind of a situation. And so the argument has been, oh, wait a minute, I think the argument has been, what about the difference treatment in leases? So we have asked in the discovery process, and I know that Mr. Feld doesn't agree that there should be a discovery process in this case, but the court has permitted it. We've asked that there be the production of the leases of the plaintiffs in the case, and they have been resisted. And the submittal of those leases has been strenuously resisted. It's been before the court. And the judge said, provide the leases with confidentiality provisions. He said he wanted a simple confidentiality provision. I heard him say that. And so after the case management conference, my partner submitted a simple confidentiality provision to the court. And Mr. Feld submitted his own version that's different and much more involved. And so the court is still to make a decision between those two. So what's the consequence? We're stuck we're frozen in place until the court makes that decision. When the court makes that decision, two things will happen. One is those leases will be provided under a confidentiality provision and will not be shared with the public. It'll be a different kind of procedure. And it will then provide for the non-binding arbitration proceeding to take place, because the court said that's not going to happen until we get finished with this. So that's where we are. And it's not a bar to continuing the operation of the SID. It doesn't prevent you from adopting the budget or changing the budget or defeating the budget or any of that sort of thing. All of your activities with respect to the SID can continue without being affected by this litigation until the case is decided. And we hope it's decided quickly and in favor of the township.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marazzi. The thing is, the question keeps getting asked over and over again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for explaining it. I would actually just take the snippet. Whenever there's another question asked about this, maybe just repeat that again, because there are people not attending the meeting every time. But I think it's necessary for people who attend the meeting to keep hearing the answers in detail, what he just said. Makes total sense to me. Thank you again.
So we're operating legally and properly.
Yes, that's right. There's no impediment.
At least for our understanding, that's the case.
Correct.
That's right.
Until the court decides otherwise.
Ready? Thank you so much, Mr. Grillo, and thank you for your time this
My
evening.
pleasure, and thank you, Committee Member Wasserman and Iglo, for your service over 3 years. You got 6, you got 10.
And thank you for your hard work.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 22-258, which authorizes adoption of the 2023 Milburn Short Hills Business Organization Budget?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second?
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Deputy Mayor Thal Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance 2625-22. Mr. Wasserman, you are scheduled to sponsor this.
Thank you, Mayor. I present for consideration ordinance entitled ordinance number 2625-22, bond ordinance funding an emergency appropriation providing for the township allocable share of unfunded portion of phase 1 of the flood mitigation facilities project of the joint meeting of Essex and Union counties by and for the township of Milburn in the county of Essex, state of New Jersey, appropriating $1.36 million, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,360,000 bonds or notes to finance the cost thereof. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with the law.
I declare the hearing open.
Just this is like informational on Jeffrey Feld. It's regarding the ordinance and the following resolution. This ordinance is for the overcost that occurred.
Correct.
And the only question I have is that I think you approved a bond ordinance for this project earlier this year. But when you read the note, which is the next resolution, it refers to a 2020 project. Is the new note that's going to be issued going to be the piece that we approved, I think, a couple months ago, plus this new piece?
Correct.
That I'm just trying to find out. There might be a typo in the company part. Plus, I want to thank you for pushing on the finance website, the supplemental debt statement that relates to this, because it shows how much more additional debt that we had occurred this year, and that'll be paid for next year for the debt service. And I'm glad that we're going to the infrastructure bank because we get a lower rate than going to the regular market. But if there is I believe a typo says like the 2020 project in the note.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Mayor, may I say something?
Yes, sir.
So I'm on the finance subcommittee and I asked our CFO about this. And what I was told, this is from our, where we are with the other township.
Joint meeting.
Joint meeting. And this is what the project they are doing. We're approving this from our township expense, on which basis county is going out and taking the I-bond loans or notes or whatever that is, which will be paid by FEMA. And most of the money will be then reimbursed by FEMA to the I-bonds. So it's not that we are paying already, we are approving it. In case anything goes down the drain or doesn't go through, then we are liable for this. So we are not taking any loan right now. We are just approving this expense and this will be paid by FEMA. Only in case of last source, if we are not being able to pay or that FEMA money doesn't come through, which is taking care of the entire county, not just our portion. So just so everybody understands, again, for me also, it's an understanding. We're not taking any loan on our books. We're just approving the expense.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Benayan.
And Mr. McDonald, you can correct me or in case if I'm off at all.
No, you're right. It works very similar to the way that we handle bond anticipation notes. You know, the idea is that they're going to utilize the iBank to fund this project and defer the impact of these costs until the reimbursement comes in from FEMA at 90%. So in the end, the idea is that the municipality's portion of this first phase should be in the ballpark of $260,000.
200 to 300,000. That's right. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Just to address Mr. Feld's comment.
Yes, please.
I don't believe that is a typo, but we'll double check, because remember that the reason for this additional authorization is that we funded it that long ago that in the 2 years it took to bring the project to bid, the escalation costs required this emergency funding of our additional amount of it, but we'll make sure.
Thank you so much.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as cast on final reading in accordance with the law.
May I have a second? Second. Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Thol Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So resolution 22-259, determining the form and other detail of the notes related to the water bank construction financing program. Are there any other comments from the committee in regards to resolution 22-259? No? May I have a motion to approve resolution 22-259? So moved. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Thought Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance 26-22, Ms. Dahl Egla, you are scheduled to sponsor this.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2626-22, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the Township of Milburn, Chapter 8, Parks and Recreation Areas. This makes it final that we can permit dogs in Taylor Park, and I just have to send a personal note. This was approved the day after our 14-year-old dog did pass. No, the day before, so it was on Tuesday and he passed on Wednesday. He was 14 and he never got to play in Taylor Park, but in the spring, Michael really wants another dog. So we'll see if that happens. But anyway, tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Thought Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have ordinance 2627-22. This is procedure for passing the ordinance on final reading, and I present for consideration an ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Milburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance, ordinance 2627-22. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law, and I declare the hearing open.
May I make a comment?
You may.
This is also something I'm very proud of. We have been talking about this for years, and it is really, I think, in the benefit of the community, and I'm very pleased to see that it's coming for final reading. And Graham, thank you. You did tremendous hours and hours of work. Thank you.
Thank you. I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with the law. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Thought Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have no old business, but we do have some new business, which is the animal control agreement. Mr. McDonald, would you like to review that, please, with us?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring to the committee's attention that we are currently looking into the township's animal control agreement. As you know, we privately contract with Animal Control Solutions. They are actually growing into a larger company as a result of St. Hubert's no longer providing animal control services. I just wanted to let the committee know that due to call volume and other items, this contract will actually be one of our contracts that probably increases the most relative to the previous contract. We are looking at about a $50,000 contract going into 2023. We're also exploring whether there's possibilities for us to extend that contract further, knowing that there's a lot of competition out there now for this service, in particular from Animal Control Solutions. But just wanted to bring it to the attention. I think they've done a good job, and an adequate job. One of the issues that we have had in the past is dead deer in people's yards, and I think we've come up with the solution that, and just by way of information, that our residents should call the non-emergency number. at dispatch, which is 973-564-7001. And then we will have DPW actually come out and take care of this. It's just been a communication and, an issue with this particular, because how they normally charge for this. And I think it's just a better service to our residents to come out and get it, and DPW will take care of it. But just kind of wanted to give a heads up, because as we go into the reorg and how we approach animal control, I just wanted to let the committee know that, and the public.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm now going to take a minute, Ms. Eglo, meet me down by Mr. I think I can speak loud. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Eglo for her 6 years of service in our township committee. Diane and I don't always agree on a lot, but Diane's done an excellent job in serving, and has a servant's heart where that's concerned, having been raised in the town and loves the town. And we've been very grateful to have her serve with us. She has, so much gets lost sometimes with things that we do, but Diane was one who brought dogs into Taylor Park. And just the other night I was at the menorah lighting, and there were dogs below. People couldn't be more pleased to have those. And Diane was also responsible for the new field that we have near the library. There's a new field that all our kids get to play on, which I think is fabulous. Diane is also responsible for YouTube, our sessions being heard on YouTube, so that people who are sitting at home, and this was pre-COVID, I guess you had started this, Diane, got YouTube so that you can see us live and on TV. Of course, we've never canceled our meetings from when COVID hit. We were always in person and in live, and we always did have the YouTube. So Diane was responsible for that. She was also responsible for the revisions to a lot of the downtown, and listen to what the people had to say where the flex parking is concerned, and had that lifted. And we don't hear those complaints anymore. So I've been very fond of serving with you, Diane. I hope you see your name is in here.
Oh.
Diane Eglo.
Very
It's just
sweet.
our way of giving back something to you, and thanking you so much for your service.
And thank you, Maggie. I hold no malice to anybody. This has been like an incredible, incredible experience for me. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Best wishes.
Thank you.
And then we're gonna switch it over to Sandy. January 3rd is our reorg for the township. That is Tuesday, January 3rd in the new year. The meeting will start at 7, and we will be live and on YouTube, just so you know. We will not be on Zoom.
No.
No, we do that. So just so you're all aware. Thank you.
Will DPW bring us my
Oh,
house?
of course, yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Anaya and Mr. Washington.
Thank you.
That's tough act to follow.
You know what? People call it politics, and I call it public service. I came in this public service role. And who approached me? These are the two people, Mayor Lieberberg and Deputy Mayor Richard Wasserman. I guess I'll call him with his highest title that he held in here. Truly an honorable gentleman I've ever met, I've ever seen. And I can set that as an example. When I got in 2 years ago, he had the votes to become a mayor. And he graciously gave it to Tara Purpose. Not that many people know behind the scene, but he was one of those. And it's truly, truly an honor to know this man here. And we talk about things left, right, center, but believe me, these are the two people I have ever met in public service that truly take my heart out. Thank you again. You are a true friend. You are a true gentleman. You have put in your heart and soul in everything you did. We have seen it in Sid. We have seen it in flood mitigation. He was with me in sub-finance committee 2 years ago. And I'm proud to say Township is in the best of the financial condition it has ever been. I wouldn't say decades, but I can say it. I think it's been at least few years that we are in good condition because he is just tireless person who keeps going after things over and over again without keeping his ego. He keeps that ego on the side. He works with people. He likes to love everyone rather than hate. Sometimes I could be a person who can be a little antsy, but thank you so much for whatever you've done. Township will absolutely miss you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I just want to thank everybody. It's really, as I said before, this has been the honor. This has really been the honor of a lifetime to serve this community and my home. And even I have lived here over 30 years, and it's really been an honor. And all the great things, you know, sometimes because we do have disagreements, you know, I think that's one of the things you learn in politics and in government. You know, there's a lot of back and forth. I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't care. We all care a lot, and we all are fighting for a viewpoint because we think that's best for the community. But I think that if you look at our town, we've never been in better shape. I mean, you could talk about all the different views on affordable housing and all the other things. But if you look at us, I mean, we haven't had a tax increase in 2 years. Our city is functioning, and most importantly, we have such dedicated volunteers. I've never seen such a group of volunteers that come out week in and week out, and they're working for the township. So I just want to thank everybody. It's really been an honor.
Thank you, Richard. You got a chair too?
Let me just see if they
Good.
stole.
That's yours.
Oh,
Over there.
oh,
Already
oh,
switched.
sorry.
Already switched you.
Sorry, Diane. Oh, there's my, right, you stole it right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the one you get right.
I just want to remind, ladies and gentlemen, all of you that in January, all of the committees will be coming back in person to the town hall. So we look forward to having everybody back in person. And as I said, we'll be in person and also on YouTube. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, Milburn Short Hills.